Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel. I don't even know what to call this because, yes, in a way, this is a preview for Chelsea versus Leeds United in the FA Cup. But really, does anyone care? Does anyone care about that game? I don't think the manager cares. I don't think the players care. The only people that care about this is the owners because they're petrified that we're not going to be in Europe again. But at the end of the day, we're mainly here for a crisis talk and a therapy session because I think we're in need of both. Chelsea is not in a good place right now. Pretty much everything that could go wrong at Chelsea does go wrong at Chelsea. Not only have we been humiliated in a cup final on Sunday by children, now I do think people are blowing this whole topic a little bit out of proportion, but we'll get into that topic a little later. But also on top of that, Christopher Nkunku has now picked up another injury. Isn't that fantastic? And our manager is like, oh, we don't know where he got injured. Brilliant. Like, what do you even know? You don't know how to press. You don't know how to defend. You don't know how to attack. You don't know how to make subs. You don't know how to speak English, even though you've lived here for 15 years. What do you know? Nothing. Fucking dickhead. Honestly, I hate the man. I hate it. Like, it's so sad. Honestly, I've said that actually this morning. And I was like, maybe we should have just, like, scrapped the club after 2021. Just like cancelled it. Do you know what I mean? Just like deleted it. It's like, okay, we end it on a high. It's, you know, like when people retire, like if Messi retired after winning the World Cup, that's what we should have done in 2021. Just cancel it. Why do we need to go through this? Oh, my days. Obviously, I'm struggling to be positive at the moment, which is why we brought our Mr. Positive in person on today. Batcham, thank you for joining us. Sorry, Ollie, you're not quite getting that.
No, I wasn't expecting you to say me.
Batcham, please give me some positive spins on something now. But initially, I'll start with, obviously, I know you weren't able to watch the entirety of the cup final with full focus on Sunday. But of what you have seen of it, I'm sure you've seen some bits after, although maybe you try to avoid them. How do you feel on it? Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of reaction online as well. The whole blue, I think it's $1 billion bottle jobs. I'm not even mad. I think it's so right. How can I be mad? It's kind of his job to come out with statements like this. But where do you stand on it all? Like,
well, I think.
Please just speak before I take more depression.
I think the annoying thing is not just losing a cup final in a way. We've all seen Chelsea lose cup finals. I think it's the way it's the way we're being disrespected. That's really annoying. It's the way that we can see the videos of Caicedo walking up the steps and Liverpool fans calling him a snake and you should have joined us and stuff like this, and Gary Neville saying billion-pound ball jobs, and in the fact they're right, and we can't say anything about it, as we're 10th. And I think the cup final was such a great opportunity in a way to just to watch this group of players, to have some positivity, to even put the rumors that Poch can't win anything in England, just to bed, with the picture of him holding, just a trophy and, beating Liverpool. And I think if we'd lost to Liverpool, it would have been fair, but we lost to such a depleted Liverpool team that it's really annoying. The fact that we have to hear about all this, they played with kids and stuff. And, in the end, we had a younger team on average, but I think that's quite skewed as well. I think, watching the cup final, it's being made out the fact that, we got outplayed or stuff like this. I think we could, just have easily have won that cup final. You think about the Gallagher chances at the end. I nearly dropped my phone when I watched him hit the post. It could just have easily have gone in. And the talk would have been much different. We would have had the 2 wins against Palace and whoever else we had before that. Yeah, and Villa as well. Drawing City. It would have been so positive. And we're talking, centimeters from that happening. And I think, in a way, we might be overestimating this Chelsea side, because I think there is just something about, we have a young side and playing in a final for the first time, 90,000 people at Wembley. Sure, we look shook. Maybe that's just how it is. I just think it's super annoying because it was such a great opportunity, for us to just at least come out of the season with something. And you touched upon it in the intro, the fact that maybe even nobody even cares about the game tomorrow. I think tomorrow is super important. I think it is very, very important that we at least have something, because a loss tomorrow, we're done. We have nothing to play for in the league. And I think, just that hope that we can, reach Wembley again, even just for a semi. Maybe just, the players have had some experience because of yesterday. But I think I will die on this hill, the fact that I've seen Chelsea in worse states than this, even though I've not, supported us since, 15. I even think the Antonio Conte sides, and I think
But
even
when you
the end
say
of the
that, you
Roman era.
surely mean only on the pitch,
I
not
mean
as a
on the
whole.
pitch, not as a whole. But I still think all this revisionism. Of course, I think Baldi, they've not done a perfect job. Far from it. But I still think we're heading in the right direction. And it might just be club briefs, but you also see these things that these reports, that other European clubs, they see what we're doing, and I do believe it because I really do. I think they've made mistakes, but I still think we need to pack some of that revisionism in because we all remember that the last 6 months under Tuchel, it's been skewed by history, but we weren't heading in a good direction, and I think this is terrible. I think it's super annoying. But I still do believe we'll get back stronger. Maybe not this season, but hopefully we just win tomorrow, reach another cup final, and we'll take it from there.
The thing is, we're still quite a distance away from a cup final if we win tomorrow. I think tomorrow is essentially the round of 16. So we'd still have quarters, a semi-final at Wembley, where chances are we'll crumble again, and then a potential final. And on the one hand, obviously, I love your positivity. You're like, we still want some hope left. On the other hand, the pessimist or the PTSD traumatized Laurenz in me is like, do I even want to get to another final? Because like I thought this after Sunday, I'm like, I would have just much rather Mudryk never equalised against Newcastle. It would have been a lot less painful than Sunday. Obviously, that you shouldn't and you don't want to think like that. I mean, as a fan, you can, but as a club, obviously, you shouldn't. But like, think about it now. The bad press. There was no £1 billion bottle jobs if we lost to Newcastle that day. But because it's in the final, these kind of stories are out, right? So,
but we could have won. Imagine if we won. Centimeters.
Yeah, and not even just on one occasion, centimeters on multiple occasions, centimeters on the offside of Jackson, centimeters
Palmer.
on the Gallagher hitting the post, like you said, Gallagher when he was 1-on-1 with the keeper, if he's a few centimeters up or down, the ball goes past Kelleher's arm or leg or whatever safety. Palmer's shot, the same, right? Absolutely. But obviously you can say that about the other direction too. Liverpool hit the post before we ever had a chance in the game. So like we could have also easily been 1 or 2-0 down before we ever even turned up because the first 15, 20 minutes, we were completely overwhelmed by the occasion. And yes, we found our feet into the game. And I'll get to you now, Ollie, because you've been quite vocally negative in our group chat, not in terms of, I can't handle what you're saying, but in terms of, are you saying I was all shit and everyone's shit? I know, obviously, from the frustration, I understand, obviously. But for me, I don't think, I feel like people are making our performance in this final out to have been worse than it was. I think extra time was really bad. And the first 15 minutes were poor. But I think between minute 15 and minute 90, I think maybe we weren't the better team, but we were at least even and could have won that game with the chances we had. We had more XG by the end, even though we were so terrible for the whole 30 minutes, of extra time. And I'm not trying to get XG talk. XG doesn't win you anything, I'm aware, but it shows you what kind of chances you had and you missed. That's all I'm trying to go by on that note. But Ollie, now with a couple of days of kind of time of sitting
to
on
get
it.
over the head loss.
Yeah. How do you feel about it now? Is it just doom and gloom? Are there positive things that you can clutch on? Because my biggest worry is, and I'll bring up that a tweet later, I said back in December that Poch would probably get sacked in February, March, maybe April, I guess. And they're just repeating the identical mistakes that they made last year already. And
they did that when they hired Pochettino in the first place.
I guess, but which manager could they have hired where that was guaranteed to not be the case? Now, didn't necessarily have to be with everyone, but no matter who they would have hired, there was always that chance it would end like it did with Poch so far. So Bertram has turned into the Undertaker. But
villain arc.
Exactly. But yeah, how do you feel? How do you feel a couple of days after the cup final, and how do you feel about the situation at the club? Because boy, this £1 billion bottle job is going to stick for a while, I fear.
Yeah, it's definitely going to stick because obviously everyone was watching the final and Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were frothing at the mouth to say anything bad about us, and they were just waiting for us to slip up, and we did. But in terms of the final itself, personally, I just feel for me, the losing like that in the way that we did at the time we did is absolutely inexcusable and unforgivable. And that negates any good that happened throughout the rest of the game. It doesn't matter for me, like what happens, because you do not switch off in a cup final, not even for 1 second, whistle to whistle. Yeah. And we did, you know, and we were let off a few times. Liverpool's goal probably should have been disallowed. For, you know, and Van Dijk scored that one as well. It was from a set piece, and he scored the winner from a set piece. You know, like it's the way that we lost, really. Like, and I think you put it in the group chat most eloquently. I think actually, Loz, is that like Liverpool didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. Yeah. And that's the most frustrating way to lose, especially in a cup final, and especially in the circumstances all around it. Like, because at the 90th minute, we could go on and win this quite easily. And then to sit off and listen, we don't know, you know, necessarily now what Poch said, what the players wanted. It's irrelevant, I guess, because we're never going to know. Yeah. But the fact that we did sit off was totally the wrong move. Like I said, whether that's the players or Poch, not sure. But we should have gone for the jugular, and it just, the whole thing screams to me of a real lack of a killer instinct and a mentality. And you're right in saying that, you know, if only a few things by centimeters is different, then the whole narrative changes. But sport is driven by those fine margins. Like the narratives are driven by those really fine margins. It's always been the case, and it always will be, because that's what elite sport is. It's eking out that extra 1% or 2% over the other team and coming out on top in the end. So for us to fall apart like that in the last seconds, you know, it just, for me, it shows a real lack of mentality in the team. It just, nothing that came out of that game was positive for me in the end. Nothing.
No, and I do agree with that in a way. In the grand scheme of things, there is nothing positive to take out of it. Like, we had chances, but I don't think you can sit there and say, oh, we played so well, as if, like, you know, against City, obviously it wasn't a cup final, so it's a different scenario.
It just annoys me when people say stuff like, oh, Pochettino coached to win. It's like in a final, that's totally irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. You either win it or you don't in a final. That, you know, as Chelsea fans, we know this. You can be the worst team. Like, you know, look at even our game against Barcelona or Bayern Munich in the Champions League in 2012. We were the worst team in both of those games, no doubt, and we still won it because we took our chances in the end, and nobody remembers that.
You know? Also because they didn't. Like, we also have to be as honest with ourselves as Barca and Bayern both bottled it against us.
Yeah,
as well. It wasn't just us pulling off.
Absolutely, but nobody's calling them bottle jobs, are they? You know, like the greatest.
Bayern got a lot of bottle jobs.
maybe because it was their own stadium for sure, but it just feels like for me that it frustrates me when people talk about the quality of the coaching, because in a final, the quality of the coaching is irrelevant. You either win or you don't.
Yeah, and even whole, like, obviously, one sec, Patrick, I'll let you speak on this in a second. I just want to on what Ollie touched on and what other people are talking about. You know, people say XG, and that's why Poch coached to win, but only because we got lucky before. Like you said, they hit the post, they had the goal disallowed, which, okay, by the rules of rules, maybe a right decision, but still a very harsh decision, in my opinion. Like, especially because the goal had been given. You know, it wasn't a situation like our offside situation. Okay, offside, I know, is kind of like black and white anyway, not like a clear and obvious error situation. But even still, if that goal had been given, had been disallowed by the refs on the pitch, the fact that VAR doesn't overturn it, probably fair enough. But the fact that they did overturn it, to me, slightly surprising. That's all I'll say. Now, good for us, but with that said, they could have been 1-0 up there. They could have been 1-0 up when they hit the post. They could have been 1-0 up when Disasi slipped and Petrovic made a strong save. Like, and that was before we ever even got into the game. So even the people that say, oh, Poch coached to win, after the first 20 minutes. When we could have easily been 1-2, maybe 3-0 down in it.
And again, and you know, like, you can't even necessarily blame Poch for that first 20 minutes.
No,
like you say, the occasion just got to the players, and they were very nervous, very rusty by the look of it. I don't know. You know, especially like, and the other thing that frustrated me about it was all the talk about Pochettino afterwards about talking how the team is tired. You know, when Liverpool played midweek, you know, they had less rest than we did. You know, we had 8 days to prepare. We should have been absolutely fighting fit at the top of our game. We should have been able to go for 240 minutes, let alone 120. And you know, and it again with the mentality of the players. You know, you've got like Chilwell and Gallagher both had to go off. You know, I wasn't happy with that at all. You know, like, Gallagher's the one who sets the tone physically and mentally for the team, and him going off was a real blow. Chilwell is the softest captain we, or vice captain we've ever had. I'm not expecting him really to.
We can't complain about players getting injured too much if we then also complain about when they're taking off to avoid.
In a cup final, it's irrelevant. In a cup final,
in a cup final, you wouldn't.
In a cup final, the rule is totally different. In the Champions League final in 2012, David Luiz and Gary Cahill played with two good legs.
But because that's the last game of the season.
It's irrelevant. It's a cup final. You either win it or you don't. And
imagine
so
Chile
important.
is now out again. We don't even have another left back. Do you know what I mean?
If we won a final for it, I wouldn't care.
No, I get it. I even agree. I don't even want to say I disagree. But I wanted to actually get into that fitness talk anyway. Bertram, you were trying to say something a second ago. Please say that first, and then we'll focus on this fitness chat, because, like Ollie touched on, it's utterly ridiculous, the situation we find ourselves in from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I think it was to touch upon the point you spoke about before, Ollie, when it was regarding the fact that Poch coaching a win. I think I saw someone write earlier about he'd take Conte's second season over this, and that was, if we even look toward better times under the both those Tuchel finals, I think it was pretty much the same game. Almost the fact that, especially the first Carling Cup final, and where we both had goals. They had a goal as well from Van Dijk, ruled out, very soft, chances missed, stuff like this. So I think even if you just look at it, just to find something at least very, in our good times, we've even lost to Liverpool in the completely same manner. That, penalties is almost even worse. I can understand the fact that the level of play
haven't been sanctioned yet, had we? You wrote the 2 years ago.
Roman had just the night before agreed to sell the club.
So that's got to be the FA Cup final.
No, the Carling Cup, the Carabao Cup final, the night before. We had,
but the Carling Cup final, League Cup final is always like in late February, right? And Russia only invaded Ukraine.
It was quite early February that year. I'm quite sure of it. Yeah. The fact that he had.
Maybe you're right. I just remember obviously the whole selling ticket situation that only became an issue after. I don't really remember that being a topic for the final.
For reference, Russia invaded Ukraine. It was like February 22nd, 2022.
But it was around that time.
And when was the cup final? Like around that same date, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was similar.
I'm quite sure the fact that he'd agreed to sell the club. Am I thinking? I think I'm correct in thinking you agreed to sell the club the night before, and then the night after.
No, it was that was before we played in the FA Cup game. Was it against like Luton?
Because we played them in the same season, same opponent, right? Cup final in May, and I think that's when he agreed to sell.
I think you'd be able to find a post of something,
right? So he kind of agreed to sell yet. They sanctioned him. Then there was nothing for a few weeks until he said, "Okay, I'm selling" or whatever.
I'm 100% certain on this, but yeah, it's not.
It doesn't.
I'll try to look at it after. There was another point as well. Just quickly before we move on, I think in speaking about the fact that we might not have gained anything from this. You were talking, Laurenz, about almost wanting to go out against Newcastle to have avoided this. I think it's also important to take
as a fan. For the team, obviously, it's better to have experienced the final.
And Ollie, you mentioned something as well. You would hope the fact that those players walking up those steps yesterday to collect their silver medals. Enzo, Caicedo being shouted at. A part of me hopes the fact that they remember that, the fact that next time we reach a final, because we will reach a final with these players eventually, that they will just go that extra mile just to avoid that feeling again. Gallagher, even though he was taken off, he might be willing. I am not doubting the fact that he had used absolutely all of his energy, but just the fact that I think this loss, in a way, I'd hope it galvanizes them in a way. It could also go the other way.
I think it's going to go the other way.
But you never know. I suppose. Looking at the bright side, I think
if we ever make it back to a final, and I'm going to say if for now, then I think once we're in the final, this experience will help us. But for getting to the final, this experience will be detrimental, if that makes sense.
But I think if you look at this group of players, I think we remember the back-to-back Wolves and Liverpool games when they had those talks after. This team has responded to losses. They have shown,
but none this big.
None this big, and it will be a test for them. But for the price we've paid, they will have to. And right now, I think, based on what we have to go off, I think that's what we have to hope. I think we have to hope that Enzo will hate having to walk up those steps against second favorite, and will do just. I don't doubt the effort these players put in, but I still think there is just something that'll give them that little bit more. And it is just, look at the positive side. But even though I don't play at nearly this level, but having lost to one team, one game, you would hate to lose to them the other game, and it just does something to you.
But unfortunately, that's what we did, because we lost to Liverpool at Anfield just a couple of weeks beforehand.
But I don't think it's the same.
No.
And that might sound bad. I just think that final, Chilwell fighting against Bradley or whoever it was, you would hope it does something at least.
Yeah, that's another weird one. I mean, I know you said only the softest captain we've had, but I don't really understand what people are having to go at Chilwell for the other guy. Like, I don't care how old the kid is. The kid, like Bradley started the whole thing, not Chilwell. So
I know, but it's hardly brave to go and push a kid.
No one's saying it's brave. But if some kid pushes you around, what am I supposed to expect him to just take it and not
No. It's not specifically around that. I don't really mind what he did, but I just find him to be a really, really soft touch. I feel like he's a very, very he's like very much, at least for me personally, a wet blanket kind of player. And he for me, he's not fit to be even vice captain, let alone captain.
No, maybe not. I do it like I agreed with the Reece James captain choice as much as. Now I knew he would be injured a lot, but I didn't think he'd be injured this much again.
I'm not sure I like that either in retrospect, to be honest. I think he's too soft personally as well. I don't think he does enough on the. I don't think he does enough talking on the pitch.
Footballers nowadays aren't soft.
A lot of them aren't. All the ones in our squad are.
but that's who you have to choose from.
I know. But yeah, like
you can't say, I don't know, bloody. I don't even know a good example of.
A good example is someone like look at like Bruno Guimaraes for Newcastle, right? Like he's not a soft touch at all, right? He's a bit of a thug if anything else. But you need that kind of presence as a captain. Like I know he's not captain, but he certainly could be for them, and we need that kind of presence for us. I think when you've got someone like Chilwell or James as the captain, I mean, and this is largely talking as a larger sort of point around the club. I think that kind of mentality trickles down to the rest of the squad. I believe it, and it's also partially about the mentality that trickles down from the coach and from the staff above the coach as well. For me at the moment, it's all wrong.
There you go. Bertram has just sent us a link of essentially where Abramovich has did state he would hand over control of Chelsea. That was on the 26th of February. Now that you've sent this, now that the memory is starting to kick in, it was essentially that's the day before this, I think, is when the rumors started to come out that we'd be sanctioned and all sorts of stuff. Then Roman released a statement, and then in the weeks after, we then got sanctioned. Then Tuchel said the whole thing. He'd drive us to Lille in a bus, all these things. But yeah,
that was a really funny period to support this club. If I'm honest, the togetherness felt that it was quite decent. It was quite fun.
That was the last time I actually really liked us. To be honest,
not fun at all.
I remember the Norwich game when we had as well. I was fantastic. I loved it. Tuchel quoted Lille. It was perfect.
Yeah, no,
that was around that time was the last time I was happy as a Chelsea fan. I think not super happy, but like at least there was a togetherness where there just isn't.
There was togetherness at that point. That is true. That is very, very true. But even then, we started to have beef within the fan base of was Roman Abramovich shit recently, or was he the GOAT of all time? Do you know what I mean? So we Chelsea fans love to hate each other. We are very good at that. But let's get back into this fitness conversation, because I think that is a big conversation to have. Now, we've touched on it there. Conor Gallagher had to come off 5 minutes into extra time. Conor Gallagher. Now, if there was one player who I thought would never, ever have to be taken off while he can walk in a cup final, it's Conor Gallagher. I just can't, like, unless he felt a hamstring already and knew if I keep running out, I'm 1000% injured, then that's the only scenario in which I accept this. Otherwise, I just can't believe, even if Gallagher is so dead that he says he can't press anymore, then just make him press less. It's still better than having Madueke on for him. Like, not that I have a personal problem with Madueke, but you still have Gallagher who's got to, like I said, you can snap his ankle and he's still going to fucking run. Like, I just don't understand why Gallagher is the one that it just baffles me. It utterly baffles me. Now, Dimitar, who's been on the channel a few times in the last few weeks, he replied to me on Twitter saying, what you can't forget in this discussion is that we've actually played quite a lot of games since after the January little mini break until now, because of obviously the replay and we the replay against Aston Villa. We obviously made it through the cup finals or to the cup semi-finals, then the final. And we play, because we have so many injuries, we play this game with this. We play all of these games essentially with the same 14 to 15 players, which he's not wrong on. But the problem I have with it is the first sub on Sunday, Raheem Sterling, who didn't play that much in all of these games, was sometimes left on the bench, is always the first sub off. So why didn't he have more energy? Jackson as well. Spent the whole African Cup of Nations on the bench, didn't play at all, essentially. And since he's come back, he's pretty much every game gets subbed off too. So why are those two apparently out of energy? How can this be? Like Ollie touched on, 8 days to prepare for the cup final. 8. While Liverpool had 3. Now, I understand not that all their kids, they played Premier League 2 and, under 18s and everything. So they wouldn't have had that kind of, fatigue issue. But they only came off the bench anyway. But we had 8 days. How can you not be ready for 120 minutes after 8 days? Like, think of, other than Enzo, think of all of these players in a World Cup. Like, you play every 4 days, 7 games if you make it to the final. Like, Argentina, how many extra times did Argentina play in those knockouts in the World Cup? How can we have the 8 days rest, not do an extra time?
And that's why it feels like a mentality issue as much as a fitness one. It's almost fitness of the body and mind, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, maybe because obviously, I mean, I can bring it up quickly. People were talking about those, for Poch, and I was, because obviously people were having a go at his statements after the game, like the team felt that penalties was maybe good for us, and they kind of obviously played for penalties. And a lot of people took that as Poch being weak and just Poch playing for it. And I'll be honest, as much as I want Poch gone, as much as I dislike Poch, I kind of disagree with that from the get-go, because I'm like, clearly, this wasn't Poch's instruction. Clearly. Like, all you have to really do, and he uses the reasoning himself, is just look at the subs. Like I said, he brought Madueke on for Gallagher. Like, he could have brought Chalobah on for Gallagher if he wanted to sit back. But no, he brought an attacker on for a midfielder, essentially. So how can we say Poch, like, yes, Poch didn't stop them from sitting back. That you can complain to Poch at. But Poch wasn't giving the prerogative, sit back, let's try to get the penalties.
And that's where the issue lies for me. It's like, you're the coach, so coach. Like, if you think we should be going for it, why is Mudryk behind his fullback in the 105th minute? It really frustrates me when people talk about Pochettino and the players and act like, well, what could have Pochettino have done? And it's like, well, he could have done a lot of things. And I don't know. There feels like there's a collective responsibility there, but people are so quick to say either it was the players at fault or the coach. And I think it's always, for me, going to be more the coach than it is the players, but it's definitely a collective effort.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to me, it did feel like a little bit that the players just didn't believe in it. And I don't really know why, because you touched on it in the 90 minutes, even towards the end of the 90 minutes, we were a better team.
Yeah.
So,
and we were, that last 20 minutes of the 90, we were absolutely pushing them, which I think is why people were thinking that we deliberately tried to step off it, because the second extra time started, we went back totally. Like, we weren't, there wasn't even an inkling of the previous 20 minutes in the following 30, No,
exactly that. And that's the weird part. And obviously you see a difference there that Klopp managed to essentially drag a second win out of his team, while our manager failed so hard at getting anything out of the team that they got scared and started to sit back. But that still doesn't alleviate the issue that it was quite obvious when you saw the team that they were dead men walking. Now, obviously, when you are the more defensive part of a game, you are going to be more tired. That's just how football works. The way we run, the way we ran, the way we try to work for it was probably more physically demanding than Liverpool's way. Even though Liverpool press a lot, but because they won the ball high up a lot, the press isn't then that exhausting. Pressing is only exhausting if you don't win the ball. If you win the ball, pressing isn't, like, obviously it's exhausting, but compared to sitting back. But in the grand scheme of things, because we were just chasing everything, but because we gave the ball away so quickly throughout the whole game, really, we always had to chase it so soon again after that. It was just a very physically demanding game. But even still, you saw the team being so tired. You saw Chilwell being tired. You saw even Gallagher being tired. You saw Enzo getting tired. You even saw Jackson even beforehand getting tired. That's why he was subbed off for Mudryk. But then you're like, so now, but this is again where I go back to. This is why it's not wrong to say we're billion-pound bottle jobs, because the fact that we're in a situation where in a cup final, we take a striker off because he's tired, and the solution to bring on for him is Mudryk, who was an unused sub for 4 games or 3 games before that, because we sent the other striker that we had on loan in January. I just can't, you can't even put into words how stupid that is. Like, how can we be in a situation where Chelsea Football Club have spent £1 billion, and in a cup final, we don't have a striker to bring on when our striker is tired? Like, think about how crazy that is. We really deep. And I know a lot of people don't rate Broja, and a lot of people want him gone and are happy that he's in front of them. I get that. Fair enough. But fact of the matter is, you still need your positions filled. Like, that is, like, you still need players. Like, imagine Sanchez is injured and you're like, yeah, okay, but we don't have a good enough backup goalkeeper, so that's why we don't have one at all. And you've got, I don't know, fucking Ben Chilwell in goal. No, you wouldn't do that either. Now, I know goalie's obviously a different position, I'm aware. But even still, the principle still applies. Why on earth do we not have a second striker at the club? And don't anyone dare mention to me fucking David Washington. Because I feel so bad for him. He's sat there on the bench nearly every fucking game. And the only time he gets a minute is when we're 6-1 up against Middlesbrough. That's the only time he sees the light of day. Like, what's the point? Why is he here? Why does he exist?
And the frustrating part as well, and this will sort of lead into the fitness discussion, is obviously we sent Broja on loan in January and said that we weren't going to bring in another striker because we have Nkunku. And now Nkunku today has been reported that he's injured now and he's going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks. And it just shows a real lack of foresight for me, and a lack of due diligence around making sure players are coming back fit enough to play.
But who
again.
could have predicted Nkunku to get injured? It's not like he's known for being injured, so you could have predicted it.
Oh man, it's so difficult, isn't it, with Nkunku getting injured? Because the fitness stuff and the medical stuff around the club has just been in absolute dire straits for the past 3 seasons. And I've been shouting it from the rooftops for a long time, and I've been screaming into the void. Nobody's been listening, but that's fine. It just seems to me like the club aren't doing enough to solve this issue properly, especially now that we've had 2 seasons of this under this ownership. It just feels like it's not being tackled. Like, either there's a communication issue between the first team staff and the coaching and conditioning staff, or the players aren't listening, or something is going wrong, because the amount of injuries, and especially re-injuries we're getting of players who are coming back and then they have a knock and then they're out again, even with very, very limited minutes on the actual pitch itself. So it must, makes you think it must be something that we're doing in training, or, something we're not doing in training. Mm-hmm. And it's just so frustrating that it's still happening. Like, we've been saying for the last 3 seasons, we've got so many injuries and we need to pick up our fitness and whatnot. And we all thought Pochettino was going to do that. That was one of the 2 things we were sold on with Pochettino. 1 is youth development, and 2 is fitness, and he's fundamentally failed on both.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I mean, there was talk. I bring this up now. Excuse me. There was a couple of weeks ago. Alex Goldberg, through his sources, let's put it that way, had put out a lot of things after that Wolves loss that were like very bad, right? In terms of, that was like, the players hate training, they leave as soon as they can, they're not doing enough fitness work, even though a few months ago we were told that they told Mudryk to calm down the fitness work. So which one is it? Everybody's a bit miserable. We do the hardest training sessions the day before games, because obviously my foot injury, I was still doing physios every now and again. I was speaking to my physio about this. And he's like, he's never had anything more insane in his life to do the hardest physical work the day before. And because people need to separate, I've seen people defend this of saying, like, this is a long-term thing. Long-term, doing hard fitness training the day before a game will get you fitter long-term. But the problem isn't having a tough training session the day before a game. The problem is having the toughest training session of the week the day before a game. Because if you're just always training hard, then yes, that will long-term get you in a better shape. Absolutely. That's not even up for debate. Sure, you need to do it in a way that it doesn't cause a ridiculous amount of injuries. But in principle, of course, if you always train hard, you will eventually get fitter. But to have the toughest training session the day before a game, it's just ludicrous. It's just utterly ludicrous. And I've just no idea how how it's explainable anymore. And you look at this, right?
It's just it's like either for me it's one of two things. Either the staff at the club are incompetent, which I don't believe, because I feel like, you know, I even had a look through our medical staff today. A lot of them have a lot of experience at other clubs. You know, before they came to us, there are, you know, a lot of them are very.
You're slightly defeating that point from Kushal here, but I did make me chuckle. Medical team are also potential medical experts.
Well, some of the ones who were brought in certainly don't appear to be, but a lot of our, you know, physiotherapy and medical staff and things like that. I mean, I was looking on Transfermarkt, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt, I guess, but it feels to me that either the staff are incompetent, which I don't believe, because a lot of them have really, you know, like decent enough CVs. They seem to know what they're doing, or there's just a fundamental communication problem between like the medical element of the club and the first team, because we don't seem to see these same issues in, say, the academy. Now, I know it's less intense football by default, right? You know, because under 21s football is never going to be the same as playing week in, week out in the Premier League. But you would think if they're training in a similar way, or if the coaches and the physiotherapists at the club themselves were the key issue, that we would see more injuries in the academy as well, and we haven't. So that's what then points me towards Pochettino, or, you know, the coaching, or a lack of communication somewhere between, about why it's going wrong. I don't know.
No, it's baffling. I get Basham's thoughts on it as well, but just because I've got them up now, here's at Spurs. Tottenham players blame Pochettino training for injury list. This is in 2018. This one, 2021. Neymar's and Mbappe's futures, amounting injury crisis, and the problems Pochettino must solve at PSG. Now, obviously, Pochettino is clearly not the only one at fault for the injury troubles at Chelsea, because we've had injury troubles, like Ollie touched on, for many years, long before Pochettino ever arrived at Chelsea. And we have also heard that last season, whether that's due to the bad preseason we had initially under Tuchel, not that Tuchel was to blame, but still under Tuchel, or then Potter's lack of fitness work, we were put in a position where the whole team lacked fitness. But then we still got the news from Goldberg a couple of weeks ago that players like Enzo and Caicedo, it's just not at peak fitness. And now we're not talking at the end of last season anymore. Now, like, you had a full preseason. You had a full season without Europe. So how on earth can you not have got them fit by now? Like, remember back in the summer when we were saying, now we'll definitely do quite well in the league, we'll do well in the Cups because we don't have Europe. Because obviously that what we went by for that logic was that Conte season when we won the league. And I still stand by, if we had Europe that season, we wouldn't have won the league that season. But it still helped us. But seemingly this season, it seems to be no help at all. There seems to be no positive benefit from not having these midweek games. We have equally as many injuries. We never seem to be more fresh than any opponent we're playing against. And if anything, it has a detrimental effect, because if you're in Europe, at least in the group stages, you tend to have easy opponents where you can score a few goals and get your confidence up. If anything, that's all we were missing. Those few easy games against your shit teams in Europe that for Chelsea are usually quite simple wins. And obviously, as well as extra money and a bit of motivation, we're in Europe, especially if you make it to the knockouts, right? But Bertram, to get your thoughts on this, where do you stand on the injury troubles, specifically for the final now? Gallagher coming off, Chilwell coming off with 6-7 minutes to go. Like, the baffling thing is, even if you wanted to go to penalties, you'd want Chilwell on the pitch for penalties. Like, he's a good striker of the ball. He takes most of our corners. He takes some free kicks. Like, you'd want him on penalties. So how can you not last 6 more minutes? Like, it's just ridiculous to me. Honestly, it's baffling. And that... The set piece defending is a separate issue. Maybe we'll get into that later. But purely on fitness, man, how do you explain it? Like I said, 8 days rest. Liverpool only had 3. Like, Gallagher, the most fit player, in my opinion, that we have, having to come off. Like, I just don't get it. It's this, first of all, it worries me. But the main thing is, I just don't understand how one can come into this position.
Well, I think the Gallagher sub, in a way, I could probably understand, because yeah, he's the most fit, but he's also the one who, you know, probably has the most aggressive play style, who also probably, you know, runs the furthest. So he's able to run further than most of the others, but he also does it. And I think, especially for a player like Conor Gallagher, if he didn't feel like he had it in his tank to, you know, complete the game, I'd almost trust his judgment on it. Because he doesn't seem like the type of player who would have asked to come off if he had, you know, even just a little bit more to give.
Just to clarify, we don't know if Gallagher specifically asked to come off, or if the coaching staff decided from how they saw Gallagher acting and
Exactly.
then
I think
decided he had to
even if you look at the way he went off, it almost looked like he even walked off. And that might even go against us chasing the game, because if we were chasing the game, probably would have run off. But I think the Chilwell one was very interesting, because seeing as he is our vice captain, and he was captain of the day, right?
Yeah.
Chilwell. You would want him on just to whatever you think of him or not. He is probably one of the most experienced, definitely the most experienced player we have in that lineup. Bar Raheem Sterling, but he's won things with us.
The same, he's soft as baby shit. Then like he shouldn't be the captain in my view. I think if you're in that situation, you need to give it to somebody who actually is going to galvanize the team and push them forward. And Chilwell just isn't.
We don't have that.
And at least someone who just stays on. At least.
Even if you give it to like Dizazi, right? I don't care. Colwill, I don't care. Like Chilwell is not the guy.
Colwill's a good shout, to be honest.
Yeah, Colwill is a shout. But then, what was the fan reaction when he was captain at Manchester United?
Yeah, of course. Like there's always going to be another example of why something is good or bad. But it's difficult.
The whole even Chile. Sorry to interrupt you, bro. Even Chile, right? The whole experience thing. Like he's not that young anymore. I think he's 25, isn't he?
26, something like that.
Maybe 26 by now. Yeah. But think about it. Chile hadn't experienced much before we signed him. He was with Leicester in kind of their fall off after winning the league. He was part. I think he might have been not in the squad, but part of the youth setup at Leicester when they won the league in 2016. Mm-hmm. And after that, he became part of their squad as they kind of slowly fell away again. Now, he left them obviously long before they got relegated, but even still. Then he came to Chelsea, within 2 years wins the Champions League. And after that, he's not gained experience. After that, he's just been injured. Since that Champions League final, how much did Ben Chilwell play? He can't have played more than 30 games, if that. Like, Ben Chilwell only against Man City made his 100th Chelsea appearance. I'm not sure if it was Premier League only or all comps, to be honest. But even still, how can you have been here since 2020 and only now have made 100 games? Well, it's because he's been injured so much. But that obviously also takes a detriment on experience. Experience partly is obviously, you and me, Ollie, have touched on this many times. Experience on the one hand is obviously age, but on the other hand, it's games. And because of so many injuries, Chilwell Chilwell, yes, might be not that young anymore, but isn't experienced either in his first season.
But I think the reason that he gets the captaincy in this...
We had the transfer ban initially. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, we go on about him.
I think that the thing about Chilwell is, especially during the summer, he was touted as one of the ones who was, first to get the new signings, put his arm around their shoulder. And I think just the character of him, maybe not in a Dizazi, screaming when he tackles type of sense. I just think he might be a different type of captain, and that might not even be a good captain. I just think that could, go a far way as to explain why it's him. Because as you've touched upon, he won the Champions League in his first season. He has experience, in a final, in semifinals with us, even winning the Super Cup as well. He has that experience, but it might not be the main reason.
Fit for the Super Cup? Honestly, can't remember.
He was fit for the Super Cup. I think if you want to give, the armband based on experience, you would give it to Raheem Sterling, but he's not the character for it. I think just the captaincy is because of the character of Chilwell, and I think even the fact it might go the other way, but had we won that game, I think the fight he was in with all those Liverpool youngsters would have been looked at in a different way. I think he at least showed something.
Maybe.
If that makes sense.
Going back to the fitness issues, so one silver lining that we can look at, and I've linked this in the chat here for you guys in the private chat, is the club are listening, because Daniel Finkelstein, who is a high up in terms of the setup at Chelsea, he does go on Twitter, he does read what people say when they at him, and I'd kind of laid out a few bits around what the general discontent I felt was around the club right now. Mm-hmm. And one of those tweets was me saying, many of us feel the medical issues run deep and preclude the ownership, but it feels like there's not being handled properly by the club. The medical department aren't doing enough, right? And that's just part of the whole thing. But less than 24 hours after that, and Nkunku's got injured, that he will take heed of that, surely. The irony cannot be lost that I've said that to one of our executives effectively, and less than 24 hours later, the one player who they're hoping will come back and save us all gets injured again. There has to be some self-recognition there that something is going wrong. And with that, hopefully, at least the words will get up there to someone who cares, or someone who can make a change.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I mean I can't remember when, it's 2-3 weeks ago I would say, Matt Law tweeted or posted an article essentially that we are making 1 more or 2 more medical staff hires, and then essentially we've revamped it again. So maybe it's not always coming out publicly, but they have actually changed these things. Like a lot of them, they've obviously initially when the new owners took over, we had this American whatever fitness company firm that were looking after things mostly, but they weren't
That
even
was a mess.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't even ever present. Then we rehired one of the physios that we initially let go, but only once a week because he was for the rest of the week hired by Como, where like the
and now we've
Fabregas is at, and
now we're letting go.
invest-
Now we're letting go whoever the head of fitness has been at the club for like the last 23 years or whatever, and some more people have come in, some more people are coming out all the time. And maybe again, it's part of the issue of the constant churn and cycling at the club is that just things don't ever seem to be able to settle. Maybe that's part of the issue. I don't know, but
yeah, no, absolutely, and that's definitely an issue. And I mean, we've said this God knows how many times, right? That all of the issues at Chelsea are an accumulation of many problems. Nothing only has one reason. Like if the injuries are part of that, is the amount of change that we've had at the club while already suffering injury problems in the first place. But then with so much changing around it, it's difficult to make the best suited changes to fix problems because we first had to change everything. And we can sit here and have a go at them for changing too much too quickly. But there's also obviously all the looming Abramovich stuff, right? Where there was a lot of dodgy business going on that came out since, and I still feel like the owners knew about those things and wanted to get rid of everyone attached to that Roman era, so we'd be less likely to get severely punished. Because if there's no one here from that era, they know we were, the government forced us to sell. They'd be like, well, this club essentially isn't like, maybe that was their hope, right? That's my only thinking. But about just one more time in terms of, you touched on it for Gallagher and you touched on it for Chilwell, but in general, how do you explain, like, especially, I know you play goal, but still you play football yourself. How do you explain having 8 days rest compared to 3 days rest and falling apart physically sooner than the opponent? Like, is that then a mentality issue? Is it a fitness issue in the first place? Do you see it like Dimitar said to me on Twitter, where it's like, well, yes, we had more rest, but we still play all the games with a smaller squad or with 14, 15 players. But does that even apply compared to Liverpool? Because they have a lot of injuries too.
I think someone touched upon it earlier as well. The fact that we've had, Pulisic and Loftus-Cheek here, these last couple of seasons who, really had large injury problems for us.
But compared to the players now
for Milan, nothing's wrong. Even N'Golo Kante, we've seen on Twitter the fact that he hasn't missed a game almost for Al Ittihad. So I think it's almost very difficult. I don't know if it's a curse, that's been put on us, because you see the reports come out with Pochettino, and they are worrying. The fact that this is a trend, not to just one of his previous clubs, but two as well. But even the fact that this happened before with us, even that first Tuchel season, or the second, sorry, with both Reece James and Chile going out injured, it is a problem, and it's something we've had for a while. So it's tough to explain, the injury problems. I think regarding the fitness, in a way, it's poor. You should have been able to see the fact that we've had 8 days, rest compared to Liverpool, who've had to play a game, and it's not, one they coasted through. They were behind at halftime at home. I think the absolute only sliver of hope you could, or a way of explaining it, is perhaps that the Liverpool team had more experience, or at least the starting 11 had more experience in finals than this Chelsea team. But even when you look through it,
fitness though,
in a way, I think
because you're more nervous, you
mental fitness.
Mental fitness, energy, or just being able to, conserve yourself. So maybe you could see by the fact that we went. I think if you look at it, we went much more for the win from those 75 minutes, and arguably we should have won. But if you look at it, Liverpool in a way conserved themselves throughout extra time to be able to push until the end, and it paid dividends for them. And I think a player like Conor Gallagher, this is his first final, arguably the first time he's played 120 minutes. Maybe since youth team football, if I'm not mistaken. First time he's played 120 minutes. But he probably wouldn't know how to play 120 minutes. And the final, the way you've put through it, I think that's the only way you could look for it. But there are really no excuses in the fact that we, looked as hard as we did. And I think you always do need to take these reports with a pinch of salt, because Alex Goldberg, a very, very good voice for Chelsea, but sometimes you also just need to look at it critically and think, okay, he is still going to get a lot of clicks for this. And I think it is so illogical. The fact that you have your toughest session.
Bertram, is because you only released it on Patreon. Goldberg didn't release that publicly.
Okay, fair enough. But I still think
not to the wider public. Obviously, Patreon is still public, but not to the same extent. So I don't he never put it on Twitter or whatever. So but I still see your point. No, absolutely right. And you have a point.
But it just seems so logical. The point you touched upon earlier with having your toughest session like the day before, it makes no sense, at all. And we don't know that. If this is what's happening, and reports are to be believed, that's when you can really put question marks against the manager and the team. But I still think until we know that for sure, it is all just speculation. But I do agree that is concerning.
It is concerning. The one excuse is maybe the wrong word, but the one explanation that I may have, especially for this being good for 75 minutes to the 90th minute and really pushing for a win, and then almost as soon as extra time starts, almost looking so scared, instantly. I mean, obviously you can say, okay, we were bad at the beginning of the game. We were quite poor the first 5-10 minutes of the second half. And then we were poor again at the beginning of extra time. Every time the team speaks to the manager, they are awful. The longer ago they last spoke to the manager, the better they get. It's baffling. And happens many games, by the way, which is a bit concerning anyway. But I'm not even trying to get at that. I think the one thing I'll give them is, because this team hasn't experienced winning. This team has only experienced losing, failing, criticism, boos, negative vibes. They've not experienced positivity at Chelsea.
That's why I felt the final was such a problem that we lost it, because it was such a good opportunity for us to engender and build a winning mentality and a winning culture.
Or even even if it's not winning mentality, at least a glimpse. Give them a glimpse of what it could be. But but that's what I'm trying to get at, right? Because we didn't manage it by 90, and the players knew that they should have won with the chances they had after the first 20 minutes. They knew that, and I feel like that's partly what got them scared, because it just reminded them of how many games have we had where we should have won if we just took our chances but bottled them. And I think because that's essentially what happened again, I think that's why they kind of crumbled and fell within themselves. And then you take Gallagher off on top of that. Well, who's going to drag the team? No one will. Whether Chile is a good captain or not, realistically, the left back also can't even do that properly in that situation. The left back can't drag the press and can't push the team forward. If the left back pushes forward, you're just playing people on side. If the rest doesn't play along, you need a midfielder or a centre back to do that. Really, but I also think, trying as hard as we did, missing the chances that we did, and then not working, I feel like that sinking feeling of being so scared that we bottle it again. I think that's why we fell within ourselves as much as we did. I think
in which case we'll never get over that then, because every time at the biggest hurdle we'll fall apart.
And that's why you need experienced players. That's the whole problem. That's why I say we didn't lose to Liverpool, we lost to ourselves, because our recruitment is just terrible. Even when we talk about, I can't remember if it was you, Ollie or Bertram, in terms of, are we doing enough in training? Are we working hard enough? Right? Is it the staff that's doing something wrong? Are the players individually not doing enough? But you see Sterling apparently hiring people to for fitness work outside of the club. But I'm in a way, good, but at the same time,
in a way, bad.
Yeah, because but in a way, bad as a sign for the club. But in a way, also bad is, well, then he's doing it at home. So not showing the younger players that extra work is needed. And that's Sterling is one of the two older players. I'm not even someone who said Chilwell is maybe even 27, which is baffling if he is. But Sterling and Thiago Silva to me are the only ones. And you can't only have Thiago Silva as an example of how much work needs to be done, that you should stay after training, that you should be there before, that you should do gym work, that all of these things need to be done if you want to compete with your Man Cities, with your Liverpools, because they definitely do it. They definitely do it. They will stay. Like, just John Terry always said it. He's never seen a more hardworking player in his life than Frank Lampard. Every day, Frank Lampard stayed for multiple hours after training purely shooting. How on earth do you think is the most highest goal-scoring midfielder in history of football? How do you think that happened? Because of fucking practice. You know, yes, talent is God-given, but talent has never taken anybody anywhere. Look at Charlie Musunda. Ask him how talent helped. Do you know what I mean? Like, talent doesn't do fuck all if you don't work hard. But talk to Ronaldo. He's not half as talented as Messi is. And look how close he got in the grand scheme of things. You know? Fucking hard work. Like, look at Frank Lampard. He wasn't the most talented midfielder. He was struggling at West Ham initially to make it through until I've heard in the podcast that he kind of like had this moment, like, okay, I just need to fucking outwork everybody and then see what happens. But our team doesn't have anybody to show them that. Now, sure, you can say they should know it anyway, and they should have the manager showing them that. But the manager is an authoritative figure. Think yourself back to school or even to work, right? Work is a different vibe. So think more back to school. I think football, excuse me, football teams are more closer to what school is like than it is to what work is like. In terms of you have this authoritative figure who's, unless you hire Andre Villas-Boas or Nagelsmann, always significantly older than the rest of the people, or Lampard, I guess. But you can't have the authoritative figure telling you how to do things. Yeah, I mean, you can, but you need someone that's on the same level showing them that's what you need to do. That's how you need to do it. And I feel like that's essentially, I think the recruitment is the biggest reason for everything going wrong at Chelsea. The recruitment in terms of lack of experience, and also the recruitment in how many injury-prone players we have signed, because that's its own separate issue. Now taking us into the conversation about Christopher Nkunku, which was now confirmed to be injured again, and not only for a day, not only missing the Leeds game and being back for the weekend, no, missing 3 to 4 weeks.
What annoys me about this is when Poch said we don't know how it happened. What do you mean you don't know how it happened? Like, you are the coach. It's your job to at least know in passing how it happened. Like,
and even if you don't know, you can ask the player.
Yeah, like, you don't need to know all the details. You don't need to know the in and outs of it all. But for God's sake, know how it happened. Like, and again, it just feels like at every opportunity that this club has a chance to, like, build a connection between either the coach and the players, or the coach and the fans, or just the club and the fan, they just fall at every single opportunity. How can you not know how it happened? That is baffling to me.
Absolutely. And Cranky Pants here even says it, that's a lie. It's not 3-4 weeks. That means 5 to 7 weeks plus 2 more weeks off the bench. Well, first of all, he said we hope no more. So he didn't even say it's 3 to 4 weeks. Definitely, he said 3 to 4 weeks, and we hope no more than that. But even on top of that, you say 2 weeks off the bench. Mate, and Nkunku has spent the last month coming off the bench and still somehow managed to be in, which is the next baffling thing. Like, you can't, like, for Lavia, for Ugochukwu, you can say that they are now severely injured because we rushed them back because of other injuries. But for Nkunku, you can't even say that. He could have, and a lot of us have said, why is he not playing? For weeks, we've been saying that. And he still hasn't, and he's still now injured. Now, because we don't know what the injury is, we can't even really say, is it a case of he overworked himself again? Or, I don't know, did he get fucking kicked in the knee and now his knee is swollen, which is obviously then, like, kind of not to do with anything. It's just unfortunate. But even still, it's like, I can't even put it into words anymore how baffling I find so much of what's going on. Like, you touched
everything at the club. It just feels like things are just falling apart, doesn't it? The players, the fans, like the relationship, literally. Just all of it. It just feels. I hate to say it because it's a tired cliche at this point, but it just feels like it's not really our Chelsea anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I want to bring up a more lengthy quote from Poch about Nkunku that Nizar Kinsella posted, but here obviously what you touched on in terms of we learned yesterday Nkunku got injured, but we don't know when he got injured. Like, what do you mean? Like last week, or which minute of the game, or on the way home, or what do you mean? What does this even mean? Like, you could just piss off Poch. Like, can't speak English, doesn't know why his players are injured. What can he do? Anyway, here he says, obviously, what I said earlier already, we need to see and evaluate every day, but he's out for 3 or 4 weeks. We hope no more, which is why Cranky Pan said it probably means 5 to 7, and he's probably right. But then Poch goes on to saying it's difficult for him. We watched him when he arrived in pre-season. He was flying on the training pitch until he got injured. Now it's nearly 8 months, and he has been involved again, but it's not the same player as before. we have in our head the amazing Nkunku from pre-season, but it is not the same player because of the circumstances. That's why it's sometimes unfair when we judge. And I agree with that. It is sometimes
That's
unfair how players don't get given the time to heal. But what is this?
For me, though, that's a really worrying quote, basically saying, like, he's not the same player he was. And so that even when he gets fit, are we going to expect him to move the needle now? No.
Realistically, he doesn't play until next season, if we're honest. I don't even know if that's the best thing, but if you think about it, what's he going to do in 2 months when he comes back?
Well, he'll be fucking great in pre-season next year, that's for sure.
When we're out of the cup, you know, it's almost going to be like the complete situation with Reece James last season as well.
Yeah. Or it's one of those where we somehow maybe make it to an FA Cup final, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. And then all the media briefs will be, and Nkunku will be our saviour in a cup final. And then we'll bring him on in a cup final and he'll get re-injured again.
And then get back to pre-season and get injured in pre-season as well and just end the cycle.
That's the thing. What frustrates me is we bought Nkunku when he's 24. Like, he's probably going to be 27 before he hits any good form for us. Like, that's ridiculous, man. Like, we can't keep doing this. And to be honest, like, it sounds harsh, but I'm really frustrated with Nkunku to the point where I'm like, if he's not going to get fit, we should just sell him, man. Because I know that sounds like a reaction.
But don't you say that? Who's going to buy him?
No, I know. But like, if we had the opportunity to sell him, I would sell him because the best ability is availability. You could argue the same for Reece James. You could argue the same for Romeo Lavia as well. And maybe part of the reason there's been so much head loss on the timeline today is because of what we've been hearing constantly this season while Nkunku's been out is, when Nkunku comes back, everything's going to be great. When Nkunku comes back, that's when we're going to find form. Well, he's not coming back. So we're going to need to find something else. And this is what happens when you put all of your hopes on one player who's injury prone. It doesn't work.
2 players, Reece James and Nkunku.
2 players.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a tough one. Roman Abramovich himself has turned up and given us money. Don't we love that? But if you're Roman Abramovich, come on, a bit more than $2, mate. He says, new book by Bowley, How to Ruin a Football Club in 2 Years.
Yeah, Loz, do you think Roman Abramovich became a billionaire by donating on stream more than $2 at a time? I don't think so.
But I don't think he would donate even $2.
Oh man,
if I'm honest, but yeah, that is the problem, isn't it? Like, I mean, I bring the picture up one more time, okay? The £1 billion bottle job stuff. The problem with this £1 billion bottle job is 200 million of that billion hasn't really played yet. Lavia and Nkunku and Wesley Fofana,
and 200 million
have barely played.
And 200 million of it as well was the waste we made in the first transfer window under Bowley.
And a lot of those academy players as well.
That's what I wanted to say, and there's another 200 million that we've spent on players that haven't even played for us yet. Because they're all 200 million,
which we spent on the midfield who don't score goals.
Exactly. On the midfield, who now look like they still need Declan Rice to actually be a good midfield. Who we should have signed for 5 years, but failed to do so. I was at fucking Arsenal, and maybe gonna win them the league. Like, it's just so ridiculous how stupid the whole thing is.
Oh, and 20 mil of it as well was Potter. So
yeah, that's true. And then we sacked him for and gave him the payout of however much it was, like another 20 or 40 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
but
literally. I said this in our group chat today. I'm not sure if either of you listened to that voice note, but I said it like, honestly, I think we would be in a significantly better position right now if we just kept Potter. Because
I don't know.
The reason why so many fans were so against Potter is because he didn't have the standards and the thing of winning. And I even saw a lengthy tweet of Pice earlier who was saying like all the things we need to do. And then one of the things he mentioned again is need to understand that the DNA of Chelsea is winning. I'm like, but that's not, you can't expect making so many changes, as many changes as we have already made and as many changes as Pice in that tweet of his wants to make and expect to win straight away. That doesn't work. Like, Poch was using the excuse, and obviously fans were on this case again, and rightly so, but Poch said Klopp had 4 years of not winning anything at Liverpool, but because he was given the time, he eventually succeeded. Now, would that apply to Poch? Absolutely not. And did Klopp do things right beforehand? Absolutely, hence why he was given that time. But even still, the basic principle of it still does apply, because Liverpool were in no man's land for a while when Klopp took over. They were at the time, I think, 8th You know, they hadn't won anything for ages, maybe a cup or whatever. We can't even do that now, but obviously they hadn't won leagues in over 30 years or 30 years by the end. They hadn't won Champions League since 2005. Like they hadn't done anything. But when you're far from the top, it takes you a while to get to the top. You don't just spawn at the top again because it's your DNA. Unfortunately, that's not how football works.
A key issue at the moment, though, is it feels like people in the club aren't the club aren't pulling in the same direction. That is one of the biggest issues I'm feeling at the club at the moment, because you look at a club like Arsenal, and yes, of course they're winning, but or City even, but that is both of those are examples of clubs where everyone is pulling in the right direction, everyone knows what their role is, and everyone is doing their absolute damnedest to ensure that their little cog in that machine is working as perfectly as possible. And it feels like everyone at Chelsea is pulling in a different direction. Everyone wants different things. The strategy's all over the place. Like we can't, like even the decision makers above the sporting directors can't all agree on stuff. So it's like, how are we supposed to? How is the club supposed to run properly when everyone's disagreeing and all the strategy is constantly going in a different direction all the time? This is why I've said for ages we need a director of football who's going. This would help us immeasurably. Get a director of football, right, who sits above the sporting directors. If you don't want to sack them, personally, I would, but if you get like a director of football who experience at an elite club, who understands what it means to be Chelsea and what it means to work at an elite club, right? And then your next step as the owners is shut up and listen to them, and don't and you know, just put your hand in your pocket, because that's all we want.
You know what the problem is with that, Ollie? Two problems. Number
ego.
one, ego. Ego is the first one, and number two, we're not an elite club anymore. We think we are,
which is why we're going to have to pay through the nose to get someone.
So how do you think we're going to get these elite players?
Because we're going to have to pay well over the odds for it. We're going to have to pay well over the odds for it, and even then, it's a iffy one.
Yeah, but are we going to pay so much more over the odds than Man United will, than Liverpool will?
We'll have to if we want that kind of person at the club. But I don't see the sporting director. I don't see
especially those elite sporting directors. They don't need the money. Do you know what I mean? Like. They don't need it. They can just do whatever. Like Michael Edwards, he can do whatever job he fancies. He's not going to go to any club because of the money. He's going to go to a club because
not unless you're offering him like Saudi money.
Project. Yeah, no. Obviously, there's certain financial interest everywhere. I get that, but yeah,
you know what it feels like, because I know that they went to Michael Edwards and they wanted him to be part of the club, and he said no, right? And but it feels like since then we haven't really had a plan. We've caught it's kind of like we went in with the concept that he was definitely going to say yes, and we had no plan B. And when he said no, we were like, oh, now we have to make it up as we go.
Yeah, no, it's true. But and I quickly wanted to highlight this, and Bertram, obviously, if you want to touch on anything that I haven't asked you specifically about, just please do. But I wanted to highlight this because some of the people that I feel most sorry for are actually Strasbourg fans. Because I mean, we did some of this ourselves. We protested against the Ricketts, rightly so to some extent. Racist rumors, more tricky to necessarily prove of things. But anyway, we protested those, had all our bollocks out saying, oh no, we can't accept these. But now 2 years of being absolutely fucked over by a bunch of owners, and all you get on Twitter, if you even mention as much as a protest, people are laughing at you. I'm like, okay, but why didn't no one laugh at the Ricketts? That we didn't even know whether they would be bad then. We know that these lot are bad, and still no one's fucking doing anything about it. Do you know what I mean? And then you read this about Benedict Barley, who we know have had. He's an extreme egomaniac who is a control freak and wants to do everything himself. And listen to poor Strasbourg. Benedict Barley, while surrounded by a large and specialized team at Chelsea, has decided to take the responsibility of Strasbourg on his own, despite it being thought that he has both a limited understanding of football and experience working in the industry. What have these lot done to deserve this? Like, these poor Strasbourg fans, why do they have to go through this? I just feel bad for them. Honestly, I feel even more bad for them than I do for us, because I mean, we weren't exactly bloody. What's the right expression? Innocent little children when Roman was here already. So we eventually, if Roman stayed, we'd eventually be fucked over by such hard points deductions, transfer bans, and all sorts of things because of his dodgy business. We would be screwed for that and for the new owner. So we'd be screwed somehow anyway. But Strasbourg, they just feel bad for them, really. I just feel bad for them, really. But no, Clutch, every contract is there to be broken. That's what contracts are there for. Ask Lewis Hamilton about it. He had a contract with Mercedes. Look at where he's going to be at next season. Contracts, like, because this contract one, they don't want that to be the case. You think Roman, in the process of being sanctioned by the whole world, will make that sure that there is not some sort of get out? The problem is they will not sell they will not sell in 2032 either. The thing that they will sell,
because they won't have made
money
on their investment. Yeah,
exactly. If they in 5 years have somehow made money back, they will try to sell and they will find the loophole. I'm 1,000% sure of it. The problem is they will not have made money back.
Do you know what the scary part is? Is it feels like what happened was because they're run by a PE firm, right? And Clear Lake, they're a private equity firm. They bought Chelsea when interest rates were low, and then interest rates spiked. In the last couple years, and now you've got Egbali in charge of this stuff, running it like he's just trying to make a buck, rather than win silverware, rather than caring about the club, any of that stuff. And that's the biggest problem of all, because if you've got someone like that at the very top, it doesn't matter who you've got underneath them, because the goal is always going to be to make a buck rather than to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's a nightmare. I mean, one other thing we can touch on quickly before we get into speaking about the lineup against Leeds. Yesterday, Sammy Mockbell, who is fairly reliable, did put out that Chelsea have started looking at replacements for Pochettino in case that
circus continues.
That is my thing. Let me go back to my tweet from the 11th of December when I said Pochettino is probably going to last till February, March, and then eventually get sacked. Pretty much like Potter last season, I reckon. Which, in my opinion, will look even worse on the club if they do it the same way, which is exactly what's happening. And that's like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So doing the identical mistakes, essentially, back-to-back seasons, they've not even learned from the lack of experience mistake. Because I know we obviously have money issues now, but we didn't even sign anyone in January. We could have signed some experienced players. We could have found someone somewhere, but instead we chose to buy no one and just loan out Broja. That's all we did. Oh, and loan out Maatsen, of course. Brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely fantastic. So in a cup final, we were now in a position, we took off our striker, didn't have a striker to bring on for him. And we took off a left back and didn't have a left back to bring on for him either. And that's the two outgoing departures that we sanctioned in January. And then you just think, how little brain cells do you actually have? What is your prerogative? Like, you buy young players, you see it doesn't work, you still don't want to buy older players to make it work, so then you know it will never work. Or do you not know? Do you not understand? Like, it's just, maybe that's me as not being a billionaire. Maybe that's being simple, but I maybe it's a naive thought, but my logic is like, well, if you're a billionaire that hasn't just, didn't just get rich off of inheritance, you've got to have some sort of smarts about you to get to where you are. And as much as obviously industries are different, you still have to have some sort of logical thinking in your head to make things work, because no one has smooth sailing all through their life. Everyone has problems that they need to fix. And problem solving is, in my opinion, what's been the biggest issue. It's okay that they have a plan. It's okay that they want the young structure and do this. It's okay that they had all of these ideas. That's fine. But once you realize the ideas don't work, surely do something about it, and not just hire everyone from Brighton. Surely that can't be the solution, right? Like that, and that's all they seem to be doing. And now they're repeating the same mistakes. Bertram, how do you see this? Like, if Poch ends up getting sacked at a very similar time of the year as Potter did last year, and then we fail to bring a permanent manager in straight away again, so then they need to do everything new in pre-season. Then initially we give that manager the excuse, he's only come now, give him a bit of time. Instead, if you got a manager already in April, they'd have a month or two of already getting settled, already getting to know everything and everyone, and being proper ready to go by the start of pre-season. People are even talking about Julian Nagelsmann now, who will still be at the Euros when pre-season starts, and still people are considering him as a manager. Like, how after international tournaments, players arrive to pre-season late. Imagine a manager arriving to pre-season late. What is this? It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. Everything we do is ridiculous. Bertram, you're Mr. Positive. Can you take a positive spin if Pochettino gets sacked around a very similar time to Potter last year? Like, surely you're like, nah, you can't do the same identical mistake 2 years in a row.
I think in a way, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Because as you've touched upon, if they sack him now, arguably that like Potter last season when we played that Villa game, the last game before we sacked, it was arguably the best game we played under him almost.
Mhm.
And I think we've seen so bad games. You know, the away game against United, terrible. The away game against Liverpool, terrible. I think firing him now after a cup final when I don't even think we played that bad, and off the back of 3 games, which arguably is the 3 consecutively best games we've played all season, wouldn't really make sense. And I also think the fact that at least if you keep him, you know, you stand by your principles in a way. And I also think it communicates out, because if we sack Poch now, other managers will look at it and think, okay, you know, perhaps he got some leeway, but Poch has still been unlucky with the fact that we've had injuries. You know, run from it or not, he has been unlucky with them.
But didn't
So-
Potter have that too?
Potter had that too, but in a way, I think other managers, we need to communicate out as well that if you come here, you will get a fair chance, because even you're seeing shouts of Ruben Amorim from Sporting. Why would he come here? A lot of other top jobs are going to be open up. He can look at it and say, okay, they hired this guy. He was, you know, unlucky. Maybe he wasn't good enough some ways, but why would I go there if I'm going to get sacked in February? I think
agree.
the way you have to look at it now is you've committed. And I think even sacking him based on the games we played would not make sense. I think it's time to just support him until the end of the season and then communicate out and say, okay, he didn't meet our goals. We didn't see, you know, he should have done this, this, and this. He hasn't done this, this, and this. We don't see a match, and then you take it from there. I don't think it's smart to, you know, now if we sack him now, get interim in for, you know, a month or something, and then hastily find someone, because, you know, we're not going to hire someone now. Amorim, for example, you're not going to hire someone who right now is in, you know, the Europa League, a title charge in Portugal. Why would he come now? And then you'd have to get someone who isn't on the market. And you've touched upon Nagelsmann as well. He has shit to do in the summer.
Also, he said no to us in the first place. Why would that change?
Exactly. So I think the thing is right now, go with Poch. Hopefully something changes. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. But right now, I think all this Poch out stuff, it doesn't really make sense, because if we do it, we're going to be the biggest circus ever. And if we, unless we go like probably lose 5 games on the trot, and you can just clearly see players that's gone. If we have let that Lampard period from last season, maybe. But
I think maybe that's an insult to the organizational ability of circuses. I think we're more of a zoo.
Oi, poor Zoo.
more of the
Why do they have to be insulted?
we're like the Titanic in a way.
Yeah.
Mate,
I-
the fucking
listen,
chimpanzees there have more brain cells than our owners. That's
I
for damn
know.
fucking sure.
I listen. I don't want. If Pochettino was sacked tomorrow, I would lose no sleep at all. I personally, I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy long term or short term. So if he got sacked, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. However, you are right that if there's nothing to play for in the rest of the season, what would be the point?
It's just a repeat of last year again. Whoever the interim will be, because we won't have a permanent until the summer, will suffer from every player knowing there's nothing to play for. So why would we bother for this manager that's not going to be there? Which is why and I said this a year ago already, I think if we're sacking the manager, we need to hire the next permanent manager now, not in the summer, now, so they can get time to get ready for the summer. And get time to adjust for the ridiculous situation at Chelsea. Even in the summer, right? We knew, or we heard, that Poch wasn't really involved in summer transfer decisions, because that's only when he arrived.
And it's
If
not
a
even...
manager arrives in March, well, obviously he's going to be involved in summer transfer decisions too, because otherwise, what are you going to get? You're going to get another new manager who's going to get players given to him by sport directors who constantly sign bad, injury-prone or overpriced players. And then you're going to have another manager failing at the same thing. I mean, someone made a fair point towards you, Bertram. Crankypan said, well, whoever the manager is, they will still come here purely for a quick payday. Imagine you and your co-workers bagging 20 million for 1 year of work. To be fair, valid. Maybe some would want to come for like that. We're sacked in a year
the
anyway.
thing is who are they going to, if say they spend 20 million, who are they going to spend it on? There's absolutely no faith for me.
It cost a whole 30 million.
Yeah, they're 0 for 3 in terms of managerial appointments so far. Maybe that's indicative of some issues within the club running deeper than we think. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like we've had a manager who actually can prove it. And but at the same time, I don't feel like we're going to get one, because to me at least, I have absolutely no faith in the owners or the sporting directors to select Pochettino's replacement with any with any real efficacy or at all. It feels to me like it will be largely luck whether it works out for us or not. For me, you need to remove both the sporting directors and the owners from that process of selection. But again, because of ego and all the rest of it, that'll never happen.
Yeah, no, I do agree.
I saw something on Twitter as well regarding I don't know, you from the UK, Ollie, you might have touched upon it, but there was like a large discourse between how Liverpool fans supported their team and we supported ours. And a Liverpool fan on Twitter touched upon it when he was like, the reason that it was so different is because the Liverpool fans, they had this, connection with both, Klopp, the manager, and even all the players, even the ones they hadn't seen. And where, we have an ex-Spurs manager who's proved nothing, a load of players who for us proved nothing. So I think the only way to, ratify this, and I hope the owners, because you saw that last season when they hired Frank, they thought the easy way to this would be to hire someone who we already have a connection with. And that's what I might worry they do, in the summer as well, trying to hire someone with previous Chelsea experience. I think the only way to get back, for us as fans to, believe in the team, to believe in the manager, is to get someone who will win, because that's the only, that's the only route of success for us as Chelsea fans. And I desperately hope they find someone who just.
Do you at all about something? The longer this time of misery goes on, the Chelsea fans will change slightly, because Chelsea fans can sit there and say, "Oh, we expect to win, we expect this, we expect that." But how many years without winning does it have to take until they realize, okay, we need to work our way back there? Or will they immediately, for the next 15 years, if a manager is like Potter and, says, well, things take time, things won't happen immediately, will they just jump at their throats even in 10 years if we have won nothing for 10 years? Because eventually this will have to change. Eventually, as stupid as most Chelsea fans are, eventually even the smallest brains will have to understand that, well, we are not winning anymore. So you have to work to get back there. You're just not. There's no God-given right to just win because you think you want to. Like that, like everyone wants to.
Well, I think Paul Merson just, tweeted the fact that it's just, it's 2 years ago almost. It's almost exactly 2 years ago. We were champions of the world. We were crowned that. And it's not that, it's not that long. No. I think the difference lies in the fact of the size of club we are, both in history and financially right now. Because even if you're like, Liverpool from the past, I'm sure a lot of their fans were used to them winning, but they just, financially even weren't the size of a club throughout those, late 2010s or 2000s and early 2010s as well. And they in a way got used to it. I think the financial muscle we have, dropping, close to £1 billion on our current squad and manager, I think in a way it does have to, bear the atmosphere, bear the expectance of winning. But I do think if we go, 5-10 years not winning anything, I think at that point it will begin. Because I think if you go into 2020, if from 5 years when they have bought the club, if we don't, if we haven't seen winning until then, I think it will begin to change there. But because the Champions League and the Club World Cup are so close in our memories, I still think it will take some years for us, or it'll take some years to see the mindset shift in our fan base.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I 1,000% agree with Clutch. Until the expectations around the club change, the atmosphere will be bad, and that's why I think until the expectations change, I'm not sure if there is a saving us, because no matter who the manager is, none of them, we're not in a position to just win straight away. Even if Pep turned up, we wouldn't win straight away. And whoever doesn't win straight away,
But if you saw progress, at least if we were fourth,
no, absolutely. Now. But I don't even think the fans are ready for progress. I don't even think progress would be enough for them. Because we lose.
I think we've been so bad the last 2 years. Some progress would probably shut us all up for like a month.
But then you lose one game and everyone lose their shit again.
That's Chelsea.
Because we did that before as well.
You can define on the Potter, like someone said earlier, Potter won 2 games in 18. Well, first of all, because half the squad wanted to leave, so obviously a different scenario. But even still, whether it's now Poch or Potter, in theory, progress is okay, you don't win, but you are the better team. You play well. You just fail to take your chances. Eventually, you grow together. You become a more experienced team. You become more clinical. That is, in a way, progress. But does anyone seem happy? No. No. Like, do you know what I mean? No one's fucking happy. There is progress. In last year, we got knocked out in the third round of the Carabao Cup. This year, we made the final. Like,
means next year we're going to win it,
or back to the third round. One of the two. But, like, I'm not sure if progress is enough, because I think we need to just strip it back all the way. And by all the way, I mean almost back to pre-2004. And not, like, we need to have a stable way of going back to the top, not expecting someone to win the league if they turn up next year. And obviously, the fans don't actually expect that. But fans go into every game expecting to win. And if you go into every game expecting to win and you lose your shit every time you don't, then that essentially means you win. You expect to win the league, because if you win every game, you win the league. So
yeah, but every team's going to back their team to win. Like, every fan base is going to back their team to win.
Expect are two different things, though.
But okay, but what's the like, it's hard to know the real difference. It's a very subtle difference, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, of course it is.
I backed my team to win after 90 minutes on Sunday, but I didn't expect it. I still expected to lose.
Yeah, but no, what I mean is you yourself can know the difference in yourself, but you can't tell that in other people. What looks like to one person backing a team might be to what they're expecting. Or the other way around.
No, I hear that. But yeah, I mean, how do you see it, Ollie? Don't you think that, because the atmosphere for the last, since Tuchel left, even before that, it's already started to be a bit dodgy. But especially since Tuchel left, the atmosphere has permanently been bad.
Yeah, the atmosphere has been very poor.
And by atmosphere, I don't even just mean the actual atmosphere in the club, at the stadium. Like, that's part of it too. But the whole vibe around it, the online presence of the Chelsea fans, the online presence of the club, whatever the media talk about us, how none of these players, like, maybe even some of them are managing it anyway, but how are we expecting any of these players to, like, feel and care for the club if all their experience from day one is being called overpriced, flop, whatever, shit, you need to win or you're a dickhead? And that's essentially all they've experienced for 18 months. Of course, they're not going to care as much as we do, because we've shown them is
spending the money that we have has allowed the media pressure. It is the truth, and that ultimately the media is going to drive those narratives, and the fans are going to react in certain ways. And yes, the atmosphere has been poor, and yes, the fans do have to answer for that. All of us do, because at games it's lethargic and it's crap. A lot of the time, away games are the only time I ever really hear us singing ever. At home games, we're really, really quiet. Stamford Bridge is a library most of the time. What you're right in saying, Loz, is we need to be able.
Once on TV, not
I know.
Once.
We need to get. We need, as a club, to get behind the team, win, lose or draw in every single game, because the players will feel that on the pitch in the game, right? If they feel that in the game, you can kind of cut out the media scrutiny and all the rest of it. But if it's quiet and they're struggling or booing or all the rest of it, the players are going to feel that for sure. And it's probably a reason why the atmosphere has been poor, is because, again, it's around the expectations. Chelsea, like you said, a lot of the fans expect to win, but at most games, and when we don't, then the atmosphere suffers for it. But it feels like, to a certain degree, that it will have to be solved partially by the fans, and I'm not sure we can do it.
No,
I think you're right, because I think if you look since that Villa game, or since the Palace game at least, when the Three Little Birds sign became a thing, we haven't actually played at home. And I think the players have touched upon both at Villa, both at City, and both at Palace, the fact that the fans singing, it actually did help them. They've all said it.
Yeah.
Gallagher after the Palace game mentioned it, so I think you're right. And I hope, but you would hope the fact that.
But also,
at home games, it does take on.
The club could do more as well to help the fans do that. And that as well is part of it. Like, I don't think, again, that it's about this sort of separation between the club and the fans. They need to work together on this. Like either in Stamford Bridge, there needs to be like dedicated standing section. There needs to be people handing out sheets with the words to chants on it. Hell, Arsenal have that stupid drum. you know. But it works for
It's
them.
miles better. Compare the.
But that's what I mean. If it works and it's
to 5
stupid,
years
it's not. If it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. So, and as much as a lot of people can label that kind of thing cringeworthy or whatever, we need, as a club and as a fan base, to get behind the team better and to work together to do that. Because otherwise, the atmosphere is going to continue to suffer for it.
And if we're being honest with ourselves, really, since the old guard left, that's not been a good vibe since.
No.
Like, you think back to 5 years ago, 2019, Sarri and Jorginho. We boo our own players at home while we were in the top 4. What? Like, compare it to now. We're fucking 10th. And they were booing when we were in the top 4. Like, think about it. Like, it's been so negative, so toxic for so long. You see the fans in the stadium. I mean, I'm not there often, but online and you know that there are people that go. You see, we are the shed. Then they argue about Gallagher's getting a banner, and then they argue about why is Kante not getting a banner? They're just arguing, moaning, booing, having a go at each other. No one's together. We can't even come up with proper songs. The most creative thing we've got is Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea. And then you listen to Liverpool.
Don't you upset
long songs, and it just with 50,000 decibels, and we can't even say Chelsea twice.
Keep my favourite chant out of your mouth.
No. It's a great chant, but it can't be the only fucking chant we have.
No, I know, for sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, like I said, there just needs to be more to be done to connect the fans to the players. The club aren't doing enough, and the fans aren't doing enough. That's the reality of the situation.
Realistically, there's one thing that's going to solve this, and it is winning. And it's winning tomorrow. It's winning the next game, and that's why, even though we are we're all hung over in the sense of Chelsea, that's why tomorrow's important, because the faster we begin to win games, exactly, and it is a rivalry as well, and a good performance tomorrow would go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And Crank, yeah, I did, but I'm not sure if you're aware, mate, but that's the large majority of Chelsea fans. Like, in numbers of people that go to the stadium, because of how inflation has fucked
tickets
everyone, right?
Damn expensive.
Prices, but even without ticket prices, everything else in life is so expensive that people have less money left over to afford tickets to football. So who's going to go to football? These people. It's exactly that. Obviously, that's the basis of everything, really. Oh, my days. Yeah, we should. Absolutely. Let's talk about Leeds, shall we? Because I don't really want to, but I have to.
No, listen, Loz, we've got to get part of the team. We can't do this.
No,
we've got to be the change we want to see.
Team. I want nothing more than get behind the team. But all we do is fuck Mudryk, fuck Enzo, fuck Madueke, fuck Jackson, fuck bro. That's all the fans do. Anyway, you know what I think what we should do is we should line every 40,000 that buy a ticket up. We stand John Terry in the middle of the pitch, and every one of them has to go to John Terry, and John Terry slaps them around the face once. Every game. It takes a while, I know, but maybe that's what they need. But anyway, I had this up earlier already. Back to Egbali being an egomaniac. Roadblock and Pochettino's departure, he does not want to let this guy go in the middle of the season. And Bertram has given reasons earlier why there is maybe even some logic to that. The problem is, if you're not changing the sporting directors either, then it doesn't make a difference. None of it makes a difference. I said, bring Jose in January. Maybe he helps us win the cup final. That's at least something. But otherwise, it doesn't. Until the sporting directors go, or until someone gets put above them who knows better, nothing's going to change. Nothing. So let's talk about Leeds and whether they will get Pochettino sacked. The lineup. What formation do you reckon we go with, boys? 4-2-3-1, most likely, I suppose.
Yeah, probably.
It's the only thing that fits, if we're honest.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to play any other way at this stage.
No, exactly. So we're doing predicted 11, but obviously I want you guys to speak if you think we should play someone other than who you think Poch will play. And the first one is, for the first time in a while, actually a question. Do you think Sanchez plays tomorrow?
I think he does, yeah.
I'll start with you, Wally, then go on.
Yeah, so sorry. I think he does on balance. Just because he's fit now, he hasn't played in a while, and Poch really likes him. But Petrovic has been playing so well, arguably, that he shouldn't. That Sanchez shouldn't. But even after 120 minutes, I think a lot of players are going to be rotated, and it's a good opportunity for Sanchez to come back in.
Would be fair
at least
as well.
In Poch's eyes.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do. I mean, do you agree, Bertram, that it will be Sanchez, and do you think it should be Sanchez too?
I think it should be, and I agreed will be. I think he deserves to play. I think we can all accept that Petrovic has played really well and deserves to be the #1 goalkeeper, but
Yeah.
I still think Sanchez is a good goalkeeper, and the fact that we have two, this should be his competition, and I think he deserves to play and prove himself.
Yeah, no, even I agree. I'm not a big fan of him, but if it was the other way around, I think Petrovic should be playing the cup game. So obviously now I think Sanchez should be playing the cup game. Even if part of me is like, well, Sanchez played against Wimbledon, Sanchez played against Blackburn. So purely for those reasons, Sanchez should now have to keep these stupid games out too. But at the same time, two wrongs don't make a right, really. So just go with Sanchez, I suppose. Centre back too, then. Chalobah starting? Do you reckon, Ollie?
I don't know. He's gotten the nod recently over Gilchrist, hasn't he?
I think Gilchrist plays as well.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to say maybe Gilchrist plays on the right and Chalobah plays as a centre back. I think, but that would make most sense to me in terms of like fitness, because Chalobah didn't play all that much in the cup final, and Gilchrist didn't play at all. So I think in terms of rotation, yeah, probably.
Exactly. I mean, Bertram, do you think Chalobah plays as the right centre back?
I do. I think he should as well. I think after
they probably swap,
minutes,
to be honest, in game. Like Gilchrist and Chalobah, they both kind of can occupy those same zones because they're both reasonably good at both right back and centre back. So it would make sense to have them both there to swap around if need be.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. What about the other centre back though? That's a bit more tricky. Thiago Silva is not fit. Even if he is fit, shouldn't be playing against Leeds really. But then you only have the guys that keep playing regularly. You're either going with Disasi or you're going with Koba. Unless you're playing Chalobah and Gilchrist, but then who the fuck you're playing in left back and right back? So I'll say this. I'll just say mine now, and you can then say whether you think this is likely at all or not. I think Disasi plays centre back with Chalobah, and I think Colwell plays left back because after the way Chile came off, I assume he's not fit to start. So then we don't have another left back available. Therefore, it has to be Colwell at left back. And because I actually think, I don't think it should be, but I think Gusto will start again. I don't think he should, but I think
you could play Gusto at left back. You could. I'm not saying you should, but you could.
You could. No, that is true.
In terms of like a prediction, Poch has done it once, I think, but I'm not sure if it's the play in a must-win game.
No, I mean, you either have Gilchrist at right back and Gusto at left back, or you have Cole at left back and Gusto at right back. But at the same time, if you're playing Gilchrist right back, Gusto left back, then you have two players out of position. At least like this, you only have one out of position, is my logic.
If Chilwell plays, I'll be apoplectically upset.
That makes it even more ridiculous that he came off in the final.
That's what I mean, because if he's gone off after that and then 3-4 days later he's ready to go for another potentially 90 minutes minimum, it's not a good look.
The only way it is, but I think Gusto is the most likely to need the rest. First of all, a right back runs more than a centre back, so I think Colwell and Disasi will be more ready to play again, in my opinion.
The outside shot of seeing someone like Billy G at centre back, maybe I don't know. That feels like
more likely to see Gilchrist there, I guess. But
the
problem is,
maybe someone like that might come on later. But
is Gilchrist not available on here?
But Leeds are just a little bit too good for that level of rotation, I think. If we were playing a League One or League Two side,
I see your point. I do.
No, I do. Okay. No, I do agree with that. Unfortunately, because of poor Alfie Gilchrist, or does no one think Alfie Gilchrist will or should start anyway?
I think he'll probably come on. There's a real chance he could start at right back, but I don't know. I'm not sure he will. It depends. It depends how
I have to use a different thing for the lineup because Gilchrist ain't available yet.
It depends how tired Gusto is. Really.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow we should risk it a bit. Just because tomorrow is our only chance of winning anything. I think tomorrow we should be able to risk just a bit.
Okay. But does that imply Gusto at right back and Kobe left back? Or what does that imply in your mind?
I think Chilwell probably starts tomorrow, if I'm honest. And I think one of Disasi and Kobe will step out. And we will play... It is really weird because he could also play Disasi right back as well. But I think he would go quite strong tomorrow. I think Chilwell will play, seeing as he would take the armband probably as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. If he
So I
plays,
think Chilwell will play, and I think Chalobah will play. As for the others, I'm not too sure.
Okay, I've got to say I disagree. I think, like Ollie, first of all, I would be fuming, but second of all, I think it'd just be a bit crazy if
the thing for
because
me
the
is
centre backs run less than the left back, so surely the centre back is much more likely to just.
But it's hard for me to see Disasi starting either because he started so many games lately and played so much for us. I think he's played more minutes for us than anyone else. If anyone needs a break, it's probably him.
Yeah,
but like you say, there's no. I don't know. We might end up with 4 centre backs tomorrow. So. You know, don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's not a bad prediction for what we could see.
Yeah, I personally think this is more likely. Only if you agree with it, we're going to leave this. I know Bertram sees it slightly differently, but we have to go with something. But now we come to a midfield where, honestly, I don't know. Bertram, why don't you tell me? Who do you think starts in midfield? Because is it really going to be Enzo and Chalobah again? Enzo and Caicedo, of course.
You wouldn't think so.
At least one of them's coming out, surely.
One of them would probably have to play. But I think most of this depends on how Poch sees this game. Because if he sees it the same way I do, he would play both. But the thing is, realistically, who else is going to play?
Yeah,
but like he said, they were tired after 8 days. What are they going to be like after 4?
And then again,
and that on top of losing
more
a final,
days,
that's even more difficult to physically recover from.
But who could you even play instead of those two?
Turainen, who was on the bench in the final, because Casaday's still cup tied.
That's the next problem. We recalled a midfielder, and for all the games that he would be used for, he's cup tied for anyway.
It might be Jimmy. I think the way you say it is Turainen. He's Finnish. Maybe we'd see him, but I think at the very best we'd see him on the bench. So yeah, exactly. I don't know. It feels like it's going to be Enzo and Caicedo and Gallagher again. Or maybe Nkunku in the cam, maybe.
No, Nkunku's injured, bro.
Oh no, of course he is. Yeah.
See, I think
maybe Palmer in the cam.
I think it's a good decision, but I think one of Enzo and Caicedo will get a rest, and Gallagher drops deeper.
Yeah, could see it being Gallagher, Caicedo, maybe.
Yeah,
I think Enzo gets a rest as well.
Yeah,
Casaday's cup tied, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if we if the cam is a part of the midfield 3, I think we would see Palmer centrally tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Because we can rotate a little bit in the forward section.
Yeah.
No, exactly. But do you guys think Enzo is more likely to get the rest than Caicedo?
Yes.
Or is it purely for type of player that Gallagher...
Type of player.
It's half tactical, but yes, Enzo probably needs the rest more than Caicedo does.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
Because he's really Palmer short and has little legs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Palmer is the 10.
Probably the wingers who didn't start on.
Sorry?
And then probably the wingers who didn't start the game, which is the only real rotation you could do in this game.
Mudryk and Madueke, Chuckle brothers, who are literally only playing because no one else can.
Yeah, but the thing is, does Sterling? Nope. And then if Palmer plays in the middle, then who else can play on the right? So
yeah, exactly.
He wouldn't play Sterling up front. No, he wouldn't do that. Some kind of Jackson Sterling combi, because as you touched upon earlier, he took Sterling
came off after 90. Like, he should be fine.
Sterling didn't play a massive amount though in the final, so he might play.
And because Ash wouldn't play Mudryk, so
I think Mudryk doesn't start again. If we're doing predicted 11, I think this starts.
Yeah, I think if we're predicting it, I would very much doubt Mudryk starts, just because Pochettino seems to have him in the gulag.
Yeah, I hate him, so.
And that looks like a reasonably strong team against like what will be a really high-flying Leeds team. According
to the chat, they've won 12 games in a row.
I think they've won like 11 of the last 12 or something like that. They're crazy in incredibly good form. Yeah. I don't think there's any chance we see.
That would be fun when he ruins us.
I don't think. I don't think there's any chance we see David Washington. I don't think up front.
No.
I just can't.
I think we're more likely to recall Broja than start Washington.
It's a dangerous one though, because now Nkunku's injured, Broja's gone on loan, and Jackson is one yellow card away from getting a 2-match ban. which he will absolutely get versus Leeds, 100%. You can call it now. Like you could put your entire life savings on it.
I don't think FA Cup yellow cards count towards the Premier League accumulation, though.
I hope not.
But doesn't it reset at some point? It should reset at some point, right?
It will reset. April 1st, is it?
Yeah, something like that. It's
not
a whole month.
Jackson will be serving his ban at some stage, and we're going to have to deal with that when we get there. That probably means that, 2 games of Palmer or Sterling up front, which is going to be absolute torture. But yeah.
This screams that one Jose story with Balotelli when we're like to Jackson in the final minute of the game, don't get a yellow card, and then he runs into the crowd or something.
Yeah, it takes off. It scores and takes off his shirt, or
for 3-0 or something stupid.
Yeah, ask the ref to give a yellow, gets booked again. Like,
or we're 2-0 down. He scores a 2-1, takes his shirt off, celebrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boys, flicked 11 done. Let's do. I think he's on 8, and because he's already got the 5 yellow suspensions, then you don't only get it at 10, but at 9 already. Isn't it?
I don't know.
I could be wrong. Whatever. Let's finish it off with a score prediction for tomorrow. And if that score prediction doesn't attach a win, whether you think this result would get Poch sacked or not. Not whether you think it should, but whether you think it will. And I'll start with you, Bacham.
First thing I'd say tomorrow is really important. And we might not all know it, but I think tomorrow is so important for the rest of our season, just for the fact that if we at least still have something to play for, the fans will just at least have something when they go to a Premier League game. The players will at least try going to the Premier League game as well. So I think tomorrow is very, very important. I think we win. I think we win 2-1 after going 2-0 up. And I think we play fairly well. I think we'll be surprised at how well we'll play after maybe 30 minutes. It'll tail off, but we'll win.
I hope you're right, in a way. Ollie, thoughts?
As we know, Chelsea always play to the level of their opponents, so we'll be playing like a championship team tomorrow.
But a really good championship team.
A really good championship team.
11 wins in a row, very offensive.
Yeah. Listen. I hate to say this, but I think we lose 2-1. And I think Poch gets the boot as a result.
I agree. I was thinking 2-1 as well. I
was thinking 2-0, and then I thought, no, we will score.
Yeah, I'm kind of between 1-0 and 2-0, and it's kind of like, do we open up so much at the end that we concede another? That's kind of
like you go 1-0 down, we push for it late in the game and lose 2-0.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking. And I see in Bertram's eyes how it's hard to give how we are negative like that, and I see it. And
listen, I don't want.
What does this club come to, man?
Yeah, exactly, man. Doing these streams 2 years ago, I never said anything other than win.
But I think to match for fans again, yeah. Remember the tweet, the Leeds one when we went 3-0 down, when it says life comes at you fast. Just remember that for tomorrow.
Listen, like it's like what we were talking about earlier, Loz. It's like I'll back us to win, but I expect us to lose.
I back us to be able to, but I also back us to have 15 injuries tomorrow during the game. That all 11 players need to come off. I fully believe that is a possibility.
If Pochettino names 2 keepers on the subs bench tomorrow, I'm gonna have an aneurysm, man.
Mate, he's probably gonna name 3.
Yeah, he might. Jesus,
he might. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, this turned into a longer stream than I expected it to be, but at least for myself, a bit of a needed therapy session. I don't know about how everyone else felt, but there you go. Please do check out both of my wonderful guests down in the description below, their Twitters, and in Ollie's case, of course, also his podcast, as you can see on screen already, Ollie J. Carpenter and At The Bridge Pod. I'm Bertram with the best Twitter handle that there is, won it twice. Unfortunately, it will probably remain twice for quite a long time. But we'll beat the new Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa. Yay!
At least you don't have to change it for a while.
Yeah, well,
if we were an Arsenal channel, we'd be won it 0 times. So
true.
We haven't won it.
We haven't won it. That'd be a good tag. But hey, in 20 years we could be Forest and buzzing if we get a season in the Premier League or not. So amazing. But maybe a random Unai Emery turns up and gives us hope for a season like Aston Villa. Do you know what I mean?
Cheeky Europa League qualification as well.
Exactly. Great. Can't wait. No. By then, the UEFA will have introduced a fourth European competitions. The Continental Cup alongside the Conference Cup or Conference League, sorry, the Continental League. So we'll win that one. Don't worry. Well, those are for the winners of the championship or the second places of all second divisions or something. Maybe the Super League will save us. Maybe that's our only savior nowadays. Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. Thank you so very much. If you are one of those people that did stay until the very end, hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you haven't done that either, that would be massively appreciated. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.